Okay, Erev Tov again, Chavrim. I'm Stephen, and you're watching Israeli News Live. And I wanted to kind of real quick before I went much further into this, I was trying to quickly find out what is the actual target that Israel is targeting there in Damascus. Of course, we are being told that it was 1st Military Division of the Iranian militia. Whether or not that's actually true or not, I mean, who's to really know? According to the Jerusalem Post there, Syrian air defenses engaged enemy missiles. Reported explosions were heard in Damascus on Sunday night. According to local reports, the target is the Al-Mazeh air base, which has been hit by several alleged Israeli airstrikes in the past there. Doesn't have to be alleged. I mean, Jerusalem Post, come on. Tell the truth, guys. We know that Israel's been striking Damascus counter to what God says do. Listen, I want to remind this constantly to the people because, every time I see an attack on Damascus, I am always reminded of what the prophet clearly said about Damascus and how that Damascus would become a ruinous heap, but not, I don't want to be the cheerleader like so many Christians do. They cheer, oh, Damascus is going to be a ruinous heap, what God says in his word. Yeah, just scroll down to verse 9 and 10. In that day shall his strong cities be as forsaken places which were forsaken from before the children of Israel, after the manner of woods and lofty forests, and it shall be a desolation. Why is it a desolation? For you have forgotten the God of your salvation, that has not been mindful of the rock of thy stronghold. God lays the blame at the feet of the 12 tribes of Israel because the God of their salvation, the rock of their stronghold, it shows that both Christians and Jews are involved in bringing down Damascus against the mind of God. Because that just shows you right there. God says you forgot your God of your own salvation. You're not mindful of your own rock. So look, every time I see Damascus bombed, I think of the sadness of so many Christians that claim that they think that this is something godly. Yeah, blowing people up. That's really godly, right? I mean, what about love your neighbor as yourself? Let alone the Palestinians that are oppressed on a daily basis, right? And people get all mad and angry and everything. Oh, Steve, I can't believe you say these things and everything. Well, Moses told Israel, do not oppress your neighbors because what you were oppressed as well when you lived in Egypt. Is that right? He also said, love your neighbor as yourself, right? Yeah, a lot of people forget that. Anyway, Syrian air defenses have responded to apparent missile strikes in the vicinity of Damascus and Homs. Sana reported with its military source claiming that a number of hostile targets have been intercepted. Now, there was 4 people that were killed in that, including a little girl that was killed in this strike by Israel. 21 people have been injured from that. And then also, and I apologize earlier, I got that name wrong there, Libya, the Haftar militia, they shoot down a Turkish drone over Libya, and now Haftar is declaring war on Turkey. Listen, they're not done yet, guys. They said they were going to take down all these nations under General Wesley Clark. And I'm still waiting for Lebanon, though. Lebanon is going to get struck as well. But Libya looked like it was done with the Arab Spring. But I guess I just felt like it wasn't good enough. Got to go back and finish it off, right? Go out for the full kill. Take them completely down. Same thing with Iran, because after all, the politicians in Israel and the politicians in America, they know more about bringing about judgment on nations than what God does. That's exactly right. I'm convinced of it now because, when God came to Abraham, he said, Abraham pleaded with him. He said, if there's 10 righteous in the nation, aren't you being the God of all the universe? Aren't you above killing the nation if there be 10 that would be righteous there? And God even said to Abraham, if I can find 10 righteous, I'll spare it for the whole nation. I'd spare it just for the sake of 10. And then what do we have now? We got a bunch of war-mongering, war-hungry Christians and Jews and Well, there's Muslims too. Don't kid yourself. I realize that jihadists out there that are out there all bloodthirsty too. So look, but there are some people that are actually for peace, and then everybody hates them because they're for peace. Maybe they're more godlike than what these warmongers are. You know, I mean, when are we going to start speaking for the truth here? Anyway, Haftar militia shoots down the Turkish drones, and now they're all ready to declare war on NATO. Wow. I say NATO because of Turkey, right? Turkey's a NATO member. But just remember, as I said in the broadcast earlier today, because right now we've got Syria, tit for tat, smacking on Turkey as well. And then Turkey strikes back against Syria. You know, it was just last year that Erdogan was talking about gathering all the Arabic nations and coming against Israel. Don't be surprised. Even though Erdogan is about done with the war there, yeah, we got thunder outside, by the way, guys. Don't be surprised if you don't end up seeing a war where Turkey comes in and reignites this issue with Syria, because the intel sources I had back months ago told me when the war goes on with Iran, they're going to finish with Damascus, take Damascus down, then they're going to strike Lebanon, they're going to take Lebanon out, Hezbollah in Lebanon, that is. And as I reported earlier today, Hezbollah was moving their troops back into you-know-where, exactly, back home to Lebanon. They know war's coming, and they're getting ready. They're doing it quietly. They're not telling the media about it, and so they're getting ready. And, I guess my Israeli brothers and sisters, all we got to do is thank the politicians in Israel for their kindness to our neighbors. Rather than trying to help our neighbors, we're stirring up the pot in the Middle East to bring about an entire regional war, which, by the way, to our American friends, guess what? It's going to come back home to bite us right in the keister. You can count on it. At any rate, though, these are the things that I see that is going on right now. Of course, Iran, we already know what was going on over there with Iran. I'll just put in Iran, U.S. We got right now Trump, by the way, that's an interesting thing. Let me forget Iran. Let me bring something up to you real quick. Okay, G20, right? Trump's at the G20, and while he's there at the G20, I saw this one tweet. I don't know where it's at now. Well, I'm glad to see these two men did get to sit down for a few minutes there. This was what I was speaking about not long ago when I'd got an intel report myself from D.C. that these two men need to sit down and talk together if we're going to avert a war with Iran. I don't know if it's going to happen because they're talking about having a meeting with Trump in Moscow, and that's not going to happen probably till after this thing with Iran explodes. And that's my biggest concern right now. That's going to explode. But I did notice, though, that Trump's trying to make some campaign points there with Kim Jong-un. Right after the G20 summit there, he was there meeting with Kim Jong-un. He's the first president to ever enter North Korea, as Kim Jong-un pointed out. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But to me, that's a political maneuver there. And at the same time, this G20, he was bowing down to the Chinese. And of course, why? It makes sense. You have to remember, Walmart has over 700 companies in China manufacturing the junk that we buy from them every day, right? Apple has 3 million employees working in China? Yeah, we got to do what China wants. China, by the way, is going to be the new world power ran by those elite bankers. I won't say any particular names there. It kind of makes everybody angry. They call it anti-Semitism. Just remember, there was some elite families that knew very well what to do about getting ready for a new world order, and China was a big to-do in that. And don't forget, those ghost cities are going to be inhabited one day, and they're going to be inhabited by some very well-to-do Americans and politicians that have obeyed and kept all the plan going smoothly. Anyway, by the way, listen, to any politician that happens to be listening to this broadcast, I'm going to give you guys a free tidbit on this issue on the border there. I was sitting here talking to guy yesterday about this situation on the southern border. And of course, all the Republicans are all up in arms saying, oh, the Democrats are the ones that actually first started separating those families, and they're trying to make it look like Trump's a bad guy, what he's doing. Well, Trump come out plain out of his own mouth and said he's doing it as a deterrent, separating families. That's Trump's words, all right? Plain and simple. It's wrong, all right? It's just plain and simple wrong. But look, if money is the big issue, about these families being separated, if that's one of the big issues there, why don't politicians use a little bit of intelligence and suggest in your little campaign there that maybe what we could do is on Mexican companies, we could have a small taxation that helps cover the cost and expenditure for the illegal immigrants that are coming in, so that we can give them better accommodations when they do come in until the issues can be resolved. Because I hear so many people talk about, oh, it costs so much money. It doesn't cost that much money to keep these people together. By the way, you're giving all the money to the Catholic churches anyway on the border down there, who are taking care of all these kids anyway while you put the parents in prisons, right? And then God knows where these kids end up after that. You can only imagine, though, especially with all the crimes that have been alleged against the Catholic Church to start with. I would hate to think that my kids were in their care. But, people would say, oh, they come on your company. We won't get into that. All right, anyways, just a thought there. If you want to make some of your points there in your political campaign there, you might be listening to the broadcast. You never know who listens there. But I think a great idea would be put some kind of tax on imports from China, or not China, but from Mexico there, and that money can be used to help better facilitate the needs of our illegal immigrants that are coming in. Anyway, I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Erev Tov. Tomorrow I'm going to go into a teaching message again. I got it on the back of my screen, which most of you guys probably can't see. An amazing set of information there. And Yana will be back on together as well. Not sure exactly if it's going to be tomorrow or Tuesday, but we trust all will be a blessing to you. Erev Tov.